Hello and welcome to Flash Forum. I'm Carsten Spencer, and I'm excited today because I have a special guest here in the studio with me, who I'm going to introduce in a moment. But first, I want to say that I'm back from 2 weeks in Brazil with John of God, and I will be sharing all about that in a later program. And it may come up today in my conversation with my guest, who I want to just get to right away. Her name is Patricia Keel, and she's someone who's been really an important part of my journey here in San Francisco. She initiated me to be an how do we say it?
Oneness Blessing giver.
A Oneness Blessing giver, thank you. Or the Diksha. I guess it's been almost 2 years ago now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's been almost 2 years ago now. And so I want to get her on as quickly as I can, which means I have to figure out my buttons again. There we go. And I'd like to say welcome, Patricia, and just share a little bit about, just with my viewers, who you are and how you ended up in this chair sitting there.
Who are you, anyway? Well, it's great, Cardi, to be on your show. Are we Carsten?
Either one,
Okay.
Carsten or Cardi. And I actually changed the spelling of my name from C-A-R-T-Y to C-A-R-D-I because it's cardiology, which has to do with the heart. And that's the way everyone pronounces it anyway.
They all say Cardi. It's true.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So Cardi. So it's great to be on the show with you. Well, let's see, what can I say about myself? I am a Unity minister, and we have that in common, that we are both Unity students. And I've been involved with the Oneness movement since 2000. Actually, my first experience was in 2005. I went to India in 2006 and spent 21 days at the Oneness University and had what I kind of call it's like a rotor-rooter experience, where all the stuff that's in there gets cleaned out in some fashion. For me, it was a very almost like a peaceful experience. I spent a lot of time in meditation for myself. I spent a lot of time flattened out in terms of not being able to really move my physical body, but the energies were very, very strong. And out of that, I brought that back to my ministry in Berkeley, Unity at Berkeley, and started sort of surreptitiously giving people this intentional Oneness Blessing every Sunday. People would close their eyes during the meditation in our Sunday service, and I would go from person to person, intentionally just sending this beautiful grace to them. And people would say, "Oh, great experience." So that's kind of part of what happened for me. That was 2006. Here we are, 2013. It's been quite a while, and I've had quite a ride.
I'm just going to stop you for a second. So, in other words, it was kind of a stealth Oneness Blessing. You were just they were in meditation, and they didn't necessarily know, but you were directing that energy that was flowing through you to them.
It was definitely stealth. Yeah. I did that partly because I could. It's not the same kind of energy that people, like a Reiki experience, where someone needs to really ask if it's possible. May I give you this healing energy? The Oneness Blessing is an intention that is created for people to awaken, to, in a sense, kind of remember who they are. It's an awakening experience. So it's not like I'm giving people anything that doesn't already exist for them. That's what the beauty of it is. So the grace that's coming through is really deepening their connection with the presence that is already in them. No permission required.
That's interesting because basically you're removing anything that blocks them from being their authentic self, is kind of what I understand.
Well, I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It is being...
The energy is.
The divine, the presence of the divine. Right. Through their connection with that presence. It's being removed, in a sense. That's really what's happening.
Yeah. Well, what I'm doing with the group right now is something called the presence process, and I know I sent you some information about that. And what was really interesting to me is you came back and you said this is the awakening process.
Sure.
This is very similar to what you go through in India, which really, as you said, it's about bringing up all this stuff that's down there that really gets in the way of the free flow of that divine spirit through each of us.
Right. Absolutely. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I was saying? We were talking before the show about, well, what do you want to talk about? And I've been lately really kind of noticing that as people are having this experience of awakening, and maybe you have this also with your own experience and experience of the people that you're working with, we talk about when someone is shifted into a fully awakened state, that there is no longer a self. And the self is something that I think can be confusing for people. We can think about it more like the ego presence, or that aspect of our being that has built up a sense of maybe resistance or protection or certain strategies that we have developed over this lifetime, maybe even previous lifetimes. We've built them up because of the family we were born into, the way our mother and father parented us or didn't parent us, the way we've interacted in relationships over our life. And we've sort of built up these conditioned responses. And those kinds of responses are actually not our true nature. That's the self that's in a sense separate from the divinity of who we are. So there's this beautiful teaching that we were given at Oneness University about the 6 needs of the self. And what the cool thing about it is, when you're not awakened, you want to really acknowledge these needs, because we have a self, and it's important to meet the needs of the self. And a lot of times I think part of what happens is people discount some of these needs and kind of go underground and go passive aggressive trying to get those needs met.
Yeah, and I think I'm really glad we're talking about this, because I'm not quite sure where you're going, but already what you've said, I think what you're describing, what I call that self that you're talking about, is our story. We all have this story that we attach to, who we are,
Right.
how we come to the world. And I think what we want to do in our spiritual journey is, we sort of understand, we hear about what it was like to be the Buddha or to be the Christ, and we want to go there before we're ready. So we start denying these parts of the self, which, as long as that self is still there and you have these needs, you must honor them.
Absolutely.
And in honoring them, you go along a specific path. And, when awakening happens, it happens. It's not really up to you. And I've
Right.
heard you talk about this. It's not really us to choose, I want to be awakened now. It's
Good luck.
It's divine grace that comes when you're ready. And there's lots of things we can do to help stay open to it and
Absolutely.
make our journey a little bit easier. So,
Well, and I love what you said, because Sri Bhagwan, who is one of the co-founders of the Oneness University, and the whole experience of this grace is, while it's coming through the divine that each person knows, whether that's Christ, whether that's the Buddha, whether that's Lao Tzu, whether that's the connection that people have with nature, this awakening phenomenon is coming through Sri Amma Bhagwan right now. And one of the things Bhagwan says is, if you're not the Buddha, don't act like the Buddha. And I love that, because I think part of us, being a unity minister and doing licensed teacher and, being a good unity student for a number of years, I think there were these kind of constructs about what it was supposed to look like to be spiritual. And a lot of us just bend ourselves in contorted ways to look good, look spiritual, do enough meditation, and part of that is, in a way, really denying aspects of the self, the personality self, the ego self, that really needs to be expressed. And until we don't have that self, we have to honor those needs.
Yeah, I think that's so true, and certainly in my past, when I was a performer, that was how I saw myself, and I, decided I needed to be this way. Then when my spirituality began, I began moving more into that, and what I find is that, or what I had found, was that I was denying certain parts of myself, and I was angry at myself because I wasn't different than I thought I was supposed, that I wasn't this person that I thought I was supposed to be. And I found that my clients and the people would respond much more when I was just authentic, when I said, I haven't figured this out. This makes me angry. I feel jealous sometimes. I feel resentment.
Yeah.
Just to acknowledge those things, it just feels much more authentic. It's a relief to do it. So I really want to hear more about those those
the 6 needs
yes,
of the
the
self.
6
Okay, well,
needs,
let's get to them.
and how they do melt away as the awakening process happens, because that's fascinating to me.
Well, how about I just tell you the 6 needs first,
Okay.
and then we can kind of look at each one of them and see how that
Perfect.
unfolds. So the 6 needs, and there's not necessarily an order, but I think this first one is a key one for most of us, and people can identify it. It's the need for safety and security. There's a sort of baseline need that all selves have to feel I'm okay. This is a safe place. Where I am is okay ground. Whether that is physical safety, security, whether that is security in a relationship that we have, that sense of, I'm feeling comfortable here. This is a safe place for me. So that's a huge need that we have. Another one is a need for variety. Think about it in your own life. You don't want to eat mashed potatoes every single. French fries are nice,
Yeah.
Same goes through with, we don't wear the same clothes every day. We don't go to some people might go to the same restaurant, but even
They'll
in
order something
relationships,
different. Yeah.
people they might have the same partner, but they don't want it to just, so there's this kind of human internal need for variety, change, things. Growth, which kind of goes, the need for growth kind of goes along with variety, but in a sense it's a sense that we're always evolving in a way that feels it feels like it's a forward movement for us. The
it's
evolution of the
expanding.
soul,
There's
spiritual growth.
yeah.
Certainly
Something
people that are
greater
watching your
always,
show
yeah.
can really identify with that. And the next one is the need to feel loved. And along with that is the companion need of that, and that is to be able to give love. So it's that precious feeling of I am loved, and I also have a place where I can give my love. Very much a human need, and a need of the self.
Yeah.
The next one is kind of, I would say it's probably my personal favorite, because whenever I'm in a group of oneness people, especially oneness trainers, and somebody sort of gets on their high horse, everybody can just go, oh, your need for significance is coming up. We have a need.
Oh, I know that
We have a
one.
need
Yes.
to feel significant, to
That-
feel like we matter, to feel like we're important.
Yeah.
And how we twist and turn ourselves in order to get that need front and center, because it's all about how other people look at us. So that's the fifth one. And the final one is the need to make a contribution, that sense that, I'm here in the world, and that I am making a contribution in the
And
world.
that connects with the significance too. There's yeah.
It connects with a lot of them,
yeah.
So those are the needs: the need for security and safety, the need to experience variety, the need to feel like there's growth, that I'm growing, the need to feel loved and to be able to give love, the need to know that I'm significant, the need for significance, and the sixth one is the need for a contribution, to know I'm making a contribution.
Wow, I think that to me that is so powerful, because partly there's so much talk about awakening that people often ask me, clients and students, what is awakening? I'm awake. I'm not sleeping. I'm not snoring right now. I'm awake. But to me, awakening is really becoming aware of reality, of what's really here, and all those needs I can see would melt away once we really get what's happening in this energetic system that we're in,
Right.
that we call time and space and physicality.
Yeah, and that's actually what happens, is that when that part of the being that in oneness we call the self, and you had called it the story, but the story kind of wraps around the self.
Yes, yeah.
The self manufactures the story,
It's like
builds
the blanket,
the story,
right.
tells the story, creates more stories for
Right.
to make itself feel significant, to give itself that sense of being loved, to feel secure, all of this. But so the self is in a sense living out these needs by how we interact in the world. What happens when, and I have to sort of say, it's for many people, and for me, because this awakening experience the experience of the awakened states for me really started intensely almost 2.5 years ago. In January 2011, I started going into some very, very intense awakened states. Some of these needs began to really drop away. And part of the dropping away was a result of being able to see them. Because it's as you say, when you can see, oh, I see how I have this desperate need to feel loved, and how I'm kind of contorting myself in a certain relationship in order to meet that need. When I start seeing it energetically, what's underneath it, which might be a really deep sadness, or it could be an anger for something that didn't get met when I was a little kid. When that starts happening and the feeling gets allowed to express itself, the energy that's been bound up in the feeling begins to dissolve. And when that dissolves, that aspect of that need to be loved, I'm just using that as an example, also begins to dissolve. And that's part of what happens when this self that has an entity that thinks it's different from the rest of the world, that starts to melt away. Then that separation in that particular area of the self no longer exists.
Yeah, what you're describing is the presence process. Is so much what I've been going through, and it's so helpful, I think, for me to go through it. And it's so, as soon as I really started stepping into doing the spiritual work, really began clients coming, having them come to me, and they were sitting in front of me saying, help me. I mean, I pretty quickly realized that it wasn't about helping someone. It was about making a space where I trusted that there was nothing to fix. It was all okay. But the minute I started doing it, that's what happened. I felt like I was getting worse. It's like all my old stuff started coming up, because that's what happens as this awareness starts to come, the awareness of the story, of all the stuff. And the presence process, just as you said, it's all about finding out what the feeling is underneath that story, and simply allowing the feeling to be felt. And as you were talking, I just was visualizing the Kundalini energy, because that's what happened. I feel like for most of humanity, it's in the solar plexus, and it's not just the Kundalini energy moving up, but we're drawing spirit down. So there really is this meeting that's happening. I think for so many centuries we thought, spirituality was about somehow denying the body, getting out of it, and going to someplace out there. And what I started realizing early on with my yoga, because I spent a lot of my early years just trying to get back into my body because of childhood abuse and stuff. I used to have out-of-body experiences, and exactly. So getting into the body, and ultimately the experience of life, which is the solar plexus, the feelings.
Nice, yeah. Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you want to talk about Kundalini now, or whether we want to go back to the sixth.
Well,
because I'm let you monitor time-wise, because
you go. We've got about 8 minutes left.
Okay, I think we should go to the sixth, and maybe we do another time. We'll talk about the Kundalini.
Wonderful. Maybe we can get you to stay and do another show. So
just to kind of look at each of these, because I think it's a really powerful thing for us to do, and also to share about the experience. I talked a little bit about this awakening state experience, and in that awakening state, these transitions can happen for us where we become aware of the needs of the self. And for some of us, it may be different needs that are more predominant. It might be that for one person, the need for significance is just overpowering everything else. And that would mean they would totally not care about whether they're in a relationship or not, because that need is so extraordinarily powerful within them. And I think we know people like that. And they're the people that'll say, oh, well, it's not the right time for me to be in a relationship. The men I meet are this, blah, blah, blah. There's a story over there. The fact of the matter is that need is as important to the self as the need for significance. But sometimes we kind of, we maneuver ourselves because one of them has gotten really triggered in childhood. And so the whole focus on successful career, looking, all of that energy is there, totally denying this other need. Somebody who's got that kind of experience, for instance, Cardi, would really be very challenged in the awakening process, because so much of this other need has been suppressed, denied, pressed down, almost ignored. And they might have the experience of seeing their need for significance and working through it. And after that's done, then guess what's going to start coming up? It's a very powerful experience, but a really interesting process. So when people say, oh, well, I think I'm awake because this is no longer bothering me, often what happens is they go into huge experiences of dealing with issues in their relationship, mother
Right,
relationship, father relationship, that kind of thing.
So would you say if someone is committed to their spiritual growth and is on moving towards spiritual awakening, that it would be important to have a balance with these 6 needs and to be
It's not so much that they need to have a balance. It's more about awareness.
okay.
It's about awareness. And what I know is, in my own personal experience, you can pull the thread from any corner, and the tapestry begins to unravel. The story begins to unravel. So for our listeners, for instance, if you were to just write down these needs, so security, safety, the need for variety, the need for growth, the need to feel loved and to give love, the need for significance and the need for contribution, to just, write them down and maybe just make a little note about what's happening in your life right now. On the scale of 1 to 10, is this a need that's really high on my scale? This one's just to kind of begin to be aware, because Bhagwan always says, to see is to be free. So to just see what's there, take a look and see what's there. And then part of the process becomes opening yourself and surrendering to these experiences, surrendering to that need for significance. I'm helpless here. I have this need. The self that I am has this need. Please, Divine, help me feel this. Help me feel it so fully that I no longer have it, because that's what's happening. And I'll stop for a minute and see if you have any reflection, because I don't want to just keep going.
I think that's really what you're saying is really powerful, not just in what you've explained for us, because I think everyone who's watching identifies with each one of those
Sure.
needs. And I'm sure everybody has specific ones who, yep, that's, I can already know there's a couple that, that's mine. But I think one of the most powerful things you said, and I have to keep remembering this, and it's so important, I, remind my clients all the time, is to ask for help. Because what we're programmed to do is there's something out there, and we immediately think we've got to fix it. We're up in our head, and that it just doesn't work. We know, probably all of us know, we've been dealing with these very similar issues all our lives and trying to fix them, been to hundreds of therapists, but to ask for guidance, ask for help.
That's totally the biggest thing we can do. And actually at Oneness University in India, when we go to the deepening processes there, and I did this in 2011 the first time, but now they're doing a very different deepening that's really accelerating people's awakening. It's all about finding your helplessness. It's about going as far as you can and looking as deeply as you can to see how far you've gone into these states, and then realizing, I can't go anymore. I can't, there's nothing I can do here, because the self is in charge. And the self somehow thinks it's separate and apart from the divine, from everyone else. And once we go to that place of helplessness and really ask the presence, ask our divine to help us through the grace, that's when everything shifts. And I just want to talk for a minute about the actual full shift into awakening, because somebody asked me this question today on my live stream program, and they said, it's somebody who'd been to the deepening, and she said, well, so they're always talking to us in this presence, the deepening, about our relationship with the divine and our relationship with the inner divine, the Antareyanam is what they call it in India. And after awakening, if there's no self, how do we have this relationship? And what I said was, well, there's no self anymore, so all that's there is the divine. So what's happening is, when the self dissolves through the full experience of the awakening, there's no need for feeling significant, because the significance exists inside you. You're significant because you are a divine being. You're loved because you are part of the divine, you are growing because that's part of the divine nature. You are safe and held in the arms of the divine in every moment. So all of these things that felt like I'm not there yet, there's a separation here because the self has built it up, all of that simply dissolves. And there's no need. Just the whole idea of a need is like find a hole and fill it. There's no hole anymore. It's very incredible.
I mean, that's really, as you went through the needs right at the beginning, that's what came up for me. Because, and, part of I think a lot of us maybe know that, our spiritual, we know it up here, but to know it in here, to actually feel it, and to be willing to go to that helpless place because we're so programmed that life is about figuring it out.
Right.
I mean, the truth is, you look at a child or a baby, they come in and they're in that state. They're in that state, and then we program them, no, you're not enough, you have to figure this out, this is what life is all about. And so we go into this dream. So it's really about awakening from that dream, and not just up here, but in the feeling place.
It's a full experience. Divine, they talk about in India the flowering of the heart.
Yeah.
It's that flowering of the heart, and it's when the Kundalini moves all the way up. The heart goes from your power center that you're talking about, and the heart flowers, and it moves all the way up to the crown, and that's where the shift happens in the brain. The neurobiological shift happens, and that's how the self leaves. It's an actual shift that happens in the brain.
Wow. Well, Patricia, I'm going to have to get you to come back. I might be able to even talk you into doing another show right now. I would love to find out more about the Kundalini. I want to thank everyone for watching. Once again, thank Patricia Keel. And can I give your website?
Onenessprogram.com.
Onenessprogram.com. She does a lot of programs in the Bay Area. I highly recommend. Find out what she's doing. Come and see her in person.
Doing a great retreat at Mount Madonna Mother's Day weekend for
Mount
women.
Madonna Mother's Day weekend for women, mothers and daughters too, right?
Yeah,
is what you're
mothers,
hoping
daughters,
to get.
women,
Mothers,
all women.
daughters, all women. I may even go dress and drag just
There
so I
you
can
go.
All right. Thank you for watching. Need to go rolling. Now I've got to. This is always my challenge.
You have to push off.
How to get? No, I need to go. Bars. And.
Cool.
Well, we can chat. A little bit of chatting in the background's fine. Sometimes those shows they do that. They chat their way out. So, do you want to do another show and talk about?
I can do another one if you want. Right now, it's better than coming back again.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, let's just do it. If you've got the room.